There is a geography inside you, not a physical geography, a consciousness geography. An inner landscape with distinct territories, each with its own terrain, its own weather, its own inhabitants. Most people live their entire lives without knowing this geography exists. They wander through their inner world like someone lost in a wilderness without a map. They encounter emotional storms and do not understand where they came from. They stumble into moments of peace and do not know how to return. They meet their own resistance and think it means something is wrong with them. But the ancient teachers mapped this inner territory. They understood its structure. They knew which regions contain wisdom and which contain illusion. They knew how to navigate the landscape of the heart. In this 13-minute teaching, we explore this inner geography. We map the territories of consciousness. We discover where your suffering lives, where your wisdom lives, where your authentic self dwells. And we learn that the journey to wholeness is not about transcending your inner world. It is about understanding it, about learning to navigate it consciously. If you are ready to understand the landscape that is creating your entire experience of life, subscribe. Let's begin. Before we map the inner landscape, understand this fundamental principle. Everything you experience in the outer world is a reflection of what is happening in your inner landscape. This is not metaphor. This is literal. The quality of your relationships reflects the quality of your inner dialogue with yourself. The kinds of people you attract reflect your beliefs about what you deserve. The way people treat you reflects how you treat yourself internally. The obstacles you encounter in the world are mirrors of the obstacles you have constructed internally. This is why changing your circumstances does not change your life if you do not change your inner landscape. You can move to a new city, change your job, end a relationship, start fresh, and within 6 months, you find yourself in the same patterns, with the same kinds of people, facing the same kinds of obstacles, because you brought your inner landscape with you. The outer world is constantly responding to the quality of consciousness operating from your inner territory. It is not punishment. It is simply resonance, like attracts like. Your inner state broadcasts a frequency, and the world responds to that frequency. This is why understanding the inner landscape is so crucial, because changing your outer life begins with understanding your inner life. The inner landscape has several distinct territories. Think of it as a vast terrain with different regions, each with its own characteristics. The first territory, the Shadowlands. At the deepest, darkest part of the inner landscape lies what we might call the Shadowlands. This is the territory where everything you have rejected about yourself lives. Everything you were told was wrong about you. Everything you were punished for being. Everything you decided was unlovable. This is not evil territory. It is sad territory. It is the place where the wounded parts of you have been exiled. Most people are terrified of the Shadowlands. They have spent a lifetime building walls to keep themselves out of this territory. They do not want to encounter the parts of themselves they have rejected. But here is what they do not understand. As long as you are avoiding the Shadowlands, those exiled parts are running your life from the darkness. They are influencing your choices. They are determining your patterns. They are attracting experiences that will force you to acknowledge them. The person who is terrified of anger is unconsciously arranging situations that will make them angry. The person who is shamed for sexuality is unconsciously arranging relationships that trigger sexual shame. The person who was told they were selfish is unconsciously arranging situations where they sacrifice themselves and then become resentful. The Shadowlands can only stop controlling you when you enter them consciously, when you face what you have rejected, when you offer compassion to the exiled parts of yourself. The second territory, the marketplace of thoughts. Above the Shadowlands, there is a vast marketplace, chaotic, constantly changing, filled with voices and thoughts and competing narratives. This is where your mind lives. This is where the rational faculty operates. This is where you construct stories about yourself, about others, about the world. The marketplace is useful. The mind is a valuable tool. But most people are trapped in the marketplace. They believe the marketplace is the entirety of their inner world. They do not realize there are other territories above and below it. People who are trapped in the marketplace are trapped in constant thinking, constant analyzing, constant narration. They cannot access anything deeper than thought. They cannot access wisdom or intuition or direct knowing. They can only think about their experience rather than being present with it. The marketplace has become so loud, so overwhelming, that it has drowned out all other voices. The voice of the body, the voice of the heart, the voice of the soul. The third territory, the heart chamber. Above the marketplace, there is a space that is more quiet, more still, more real. This is the heart chamber, the actual heart. Not the heart as metaphor, but the heart as a center of consciousness. The heart knows things the mind cannot know. The heart recognizes truth through direct knowing rather than analysis. The heart is capable of love and compassion and forgiveness in ways the mind cannot achieve. But most people have learned to distrust the heart. They have been hurt by following their heart. They have been disappointed by trusting their heart. So they have closed the heart and moved their consciousness into the mind, the safer territory of thought. This is why so much suffering exists. Because people are living from the head while the heart is locked away, exiled, shut down. The journey to wholeness requires opening the heart chamber again, requires allowing it to speak, requires trusting what the heart knows even when the mind argues against it. The fourth territory, the wide sky. Above all these territories there is a wide sky, open, spacious, clear. This is the territory of witnessing consciousness, the part of you that is aware of all the territories below without being identified with any of them, the part that can observe the shadow lands without being consumed by them, the part that can hear the marketplace of thoughts without being enslaved by them, the part that can listen to the heart without losing clarity. This is the territory of perspective, of seeing the whole landscape at once rather than being trapped in one section of it. Most people have never accessed this territory. They do not know it exists. They are stuck down in the marketplace or even deeper in the shadowlands. But this wide sky is always available. This witnessing consciousness is always present. You just have to shift your perspective to access it. The fifth territory, the infinite beyond and above. Even the wide sky, there is something ineffable, something that cannot be mapped because it transcends all maps. This is the territory beyond self, beyond the individual consciousness, the ground of all being, the source. You cannot live in this territory permanently while maintaining individual consciousness. But you can touch it, you can taste it, You can have moments where the boundaries between your individual consciousness and universal consciousness dissolve. These are the moments of profound peace, of coming home, of remembering what you actually are. As you navigate the inner landscape, you notice it has seasons. It has weather patterns. Sometimes you are in drought. The heart chamber is dry. The inner world is barren. Sometimes you're in flood. Emotions overwhelm. The landscape becomes waterlogged. Sometimes you are in storm. The marketplace is chaotic. The winds of thought are violent. Sometimes you are in clear weather. Everything is still. Everything is luminous. These weather patterns are not permanent. They change. They cycle. The person who understands the inner landscape knows that every storm passes. Every drought ends. Every flood recedes. But the person who does not understand the landscape thinks the current weather is permanent. They think the drought will never end. They think the storm is who they are rather than something that is passing through. Understanding the weather patterns gives you perspective. It gives you patience. It reminds you that nothing lasts. Everything is in motion, and you are not the weather. You are the sky that the weather moves through. The journey to wholeness is a journey through this inner landscape. You cannot skip territories. You cannot go directly from the shadowlands to the wide sky. You have to navigate through each territory. You have to integrate each one. When you begin to wake up, you usually start by noticing the marketplace of thoughts. You begin to observe your own thinking. You begin to notice how much of your suffering is created by the stories in your mind. Then, if you continue, you begin to access the heart chamber. You begin to feel things you have been defended against. You begin to let love in. As you do this inner work, you inevitably encounter the shadowlands. You encounter the parts of yourself you have rejected. And if you have courage, you enter those lands and offer compassion to the exiled parts of yourself. At some point, you gain enough perspective that you can access the wide sky. You can observe all the territories from above. You can see the patterns. You can understand the whole landscape. And in rare moments, you touch the infinite beyond. You remember what you actually are. You taste the ground of being. But this is not a linear journey. It is a spiral. You cycle through these territories again and again, each time with more understanding. Each time you go deeper. After years of this inner work, something shifts. You realize that the heart is not just one territory among many. The heart is the center from which all territories are known. The heart is the actual seat of consciousness. All your suffering has come from exiling the heart from the center. All your healing comes from returning the heart to where it belongs. When the heart is at the center, everything else finds its right place. The shadowlands are still accessible, but they are no longer ruling you from the darkness. The marketplace of thoughts still functions, but it no longer claims to be the whole of you. The wide sky is always accessible, but you do not need to escape to it anymore. You are living from the heart, from presence, from the center of your being, and from that place, everything changes. Your relationships change, your work changes, your inner experience changes, because you are no longer operating from defended positions. You are operating from wholeness. This is the ultimate destination of the journey through the inner landscape, the return to the heart as the true center of consciousness. The inner landscape is your actual home. You do not live in your outer circumstances. You do not live in your relationships or your work or your possessions. You live inside yourself, in the landscape of your own consciousness. And the quality of that inner landscape determines everything about your life. If you understand the inner landscape, you can navigate it consciously. You can offer compassion to the exiled parts of yourself. You can quiet the marketplace of thoughts. You can access the wisdom of the heart. You can reach the wide sky of witnessing consciousness, and you can remember in moments of grace what you actually are beyond all territories, beyond all landscapes, beyond all maps. Like this video, if you recognize the territories of your own inner landscape. Subscribe to the Path of Sufism for teachings on the inner world and the journey to wholeness. Comment: which territory of your inner landscape do you find yourself trapped in most often? Which territory calls to you? Thank you for being here.